There are many interesting horror manga out there, many of them being quick reads. I've gone through a few periods in my life where I like that really mature, seinen sort of horror, and revisiting a lot of those series again, I realize how underwhelming many of them were. Fraction is one of those manga. It's a very meta series, and it's not so much a horror piece as it is a commentary on plot devices and tiptoeing the fine line between selling out and staying true to what you want to do as a mangaka. Written and drawn by legendary artist Shintaro Kago, Fraction tells the story of a serial killer who's plaguing the surrounding cities of Tokyo with the dismembering and deaths of many women in their mid to late 20s. You see a group of coworkers come together and talk about what's going on, and they look at it from a very black comedy sort of POV. They're making jokes, they're trying to solve the crime themselves, but we as the reader, we are already given a hint to who the murderer is. So when we start seeing the little pieces revealed throughout the course of this story, it really does just kind of play out as, hey, this is just exposition and reveal and banter between people talking. There's a parallel story going on in this volume as well, which looks at the mangaka perspective. I have to admit, this secondary story was so puzzling. It was just talk about paneling and framing and things that aren't really interesting. I love to read manga about the manga creation process, but this was so fucking boring. I just wished that we would move on from this dumb story back to the main plot. Unfortunately, my wish came true. When we get back to the main murder mystery of Fraction, it ends up being one of the dumbest reveals that I've read over the last few months. And believe me, I've read some really shitty manga over the last few months. This one truly takes the cake by trunicating the plot and makes sure that the reader starts questioning everything that they were reading up until this point. I don't think Fraction is worth the read. It isn't a bad manga, it's just uninteresting. Kudos to the writer and author for creating the work they intended to. That's rad, but there's nothing more annoying than a pretentious creative putting out a bland, boring story. My expectations for this manga were absolutely not met. At the end of the day, it's a generic late 2000s horror manga that's more about the shock than telling an enduring tale. But hey, if you're into super meta, super insular work, then read it and also check out the interviews that are put towards the end of the manga. I'm sure you'll like it, and if you don't like that or the main story, then the two throwaway stories at the end offer at least some form of entertainment, even though they're not connected to everything else that came before. Do yourself a favor. Check out Shintaro Kago's work on IG. It's a lot more compelling than reading his manga, unfortunately. I'm giving Fraction a 2 out of 10.